welcome back to Indie Housing Market. I'm Shelly Walters with the Shelly Walters Realty Group and FC Tucker.
And I'm Joy Perry with the Shelly Walters Group as well.
This is our guest today. We're really excited to have Tracy Sullivan with Critter Control of Hamilton County, and we just have some information to talk about in regards to housing and what those critters can do to a home. And honestly, when we talked first, I was surprised, so maybe you guys will be as well. So one of the things I just want to talk to you about, why does it matter to us about those critters and home buying and selling?
What we run across is there's a lot of times when we do our inspection, we're going to find a lot of things that may hold up the sale of a home, or things that a potential buyer is going to run into that may cost them a lot of money in the future.
Yeah, and so one of the things, as you had said earlier before we got started, is obviously it's very important for us to do inspections, and we highly recommend to all of our buyers to have inspections. I really don't want to ever have a deal where I didn't do the inspection. So we get those little sayings in our, the document comes back with 60 pages, and one little section will say, in the attic there may be some signs of some kind of an animal. Usually they say mice, and there may be some excrement in the insulation and everything like that. But you said that that's not always what they really think it is not true.
When you see that, you definitely want to call an expert. That can be misdiagnosed by a home inspector. A lot of times people will think it's mice, and it could turn out to be a colony of bats that could cost someone up to $10,000 on doing a remediation of the house, kicking the bats up, sealing the house up. So you just want to make sure that's just not a guess. When that comes up in the report, you want to know exactly what you're dealing with before you put an offer in on a house.
So we'd have you come in after we've received that and say, we're going to have Critter Control come in and look at the attic or wherever these were found and find out exactly what is going on. And do you do this service inspection free, or is there a charge for that inspection?
We charge for our inspection. We've spent a lot of time and money training our guys. We do a lot of continuing education. So it costs a lot of money to have top-notch employees. So yes, we do definitely charge for it.
So if the seller or a buyer does have a concern of maybe some sort of infestation of something prior to an inspection, would it be beneficial for them to do it prior to an inspection, or should they wait for a home inspector to come in?
I always say prior. We actually have some customers who have used us at multiple houses as they've bought and sold, and we always get a call from them prior to them even having a home inspector go out. I mean, we'll go out and look for any potential animals, wildlife, not just that, but they're also looking for things to animal-proof the home that they could possibly be purchasing.
So we always want to say, get your house ready for sale. So if you have any concerns that this is going on, I would think it would be a very good idea to do, because if I get that inspection report back as a buyer, it may petrify me to know that these beings are somewhere in the house doing strange things. What is this homeowner, can they actually know as a sign that they may have an issue? Because we're not going in our attics every day or our crawl spaces.
Yeah, I mean, unless somebody has had an animal issue, most people don't even think about it. I mean, because unless a HVAC company, plumber, somebody who's been in your attic or your crawl space says something to you, you may have things living there and you don't know it. But if you are a homeowner who has had animals but never remediated, never cleaned up, never fixed any of the damage, and you know you're going to sell, I would highly look into addressing that prior to putting the house on the market.
So being a homeowner myself, sounds, rolling of squirrels or pitter-patter of little feet.
Yep.
Are those some of the things that we should be listening for in our homes prior to putting them on the market? If we're in an area that's prone to that?
Well,
And is there an area that we're prone to? Because I just think it's going to happen in Brown County in the woods, right? That's where they are.
So, yes, they're there, but they live in the woods. Here, we have built them the perfect habitat. I mean, you look at all these neighborhoods, there's an abundance of trees, ponds. I mean, the landscaping, the lush landscaping that people have at their houses. I mean, we've provided them everything they need to thrive in.
So you've seen it in new construction as well, then?
Yeah. Sorry. So there's a couple new neighborhoods really close to here. Very, very
And we're in
nice.
downtown Carmel.
Pretty close to here. A little West Carmel up in Westfield. But with the new construction, houses have natural construction gaps on them. And let's take for one neighborhood, for example, Chatham Hills. All that property was full of animals before they started building. So when they broke ground, those animals didn't just run off. They laid low, they waited, and during the construction, these animals are moving in prior to the people even moving in. So, I mean, there are people who are calling us the first week living in their brand new home where they're hearing noises and actually seeing animals loose in the house.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Welcome home.
So, new
Can you
construction.
imagine getting up
yeah.
in the middle of the night and
Yeah.
there's a little
Yeah.
beady eyes looking at
so,
you?
like,
That's crazy.
Jackson's Grant over there, the first 2 years, the mouse calls were out of control. There were just tons of
And you
mice.
can't seal a house to stop this, right? Like, what are we doing
You can
now?
try, yes. You can do a lot of preventative things to keep them at bay, but if there are determined mice, yeah, it's very hard to keep them out. But there are preventative measures that we and other companies do so you shouldn't have to encounter mice in your house. And you can do things that, will eliminate a mouse problem that you could possibly have in new or existing homes. But it's more of a maintenance thing than it is just a one-time solution, and you're never going to have a problem again.
Well, we highly recommend when we have new build buyers coming in and buying a new build, a 3-step stage of inspections. So we should find those during that, hopefully, right? Like during 3 inspections, they've gone through pre-drywall, and afterwards they're going into all these places.
The problem is most home inspectors don't know what to look for when it comes to animals. When most home inspectors are pointing out an animal issue, that means that issue has been going on for a very long time, and they can see it. That at that point, they're like, well, there's something wrong here.
So at
And
that
they will
point, we're probably much farther along than we
Correct,
should be.
Correct, yeah.
Right.
yeah.
So then in preparation, what are some of the things we as homeowners, buyers, or sellers can do to prepare and be ready so that we don't have to deal with this issue?
I mean, there's a lot of people aren't going to like it, but so many people feed the birds. I will never tell someone to stop feeding the birds if they're a bird watcher.
My HOA doesn't allow people to feed birds.
That's not a bad thing.
Yep.
I know it.
I thought it was weird.
It makes people upset, but birds have food. Most people who feed birds on a regular basis, they're either a bird watcher or they think the birds need the food. If you're going to feed birds and it's for a food purpose, I say just in the middle of winter, then stop it. Break the cycle in the summertime. There's plenty of food for them. Because what you're doing when you feed birds, you're bringing in mice, chipmunks, raccoons, possums, all of those things to the house. And once they know there's a constant food source, then a lot of them will want to live next to that constant food source,
So it's not because
which is your house.
We aren't worried about the birds. We're worried about what that feed does
Correct,
bring to our
correct.
house.
Yes.
So brand new house is still not completely sealed tight. So I'm out there feeding my birds in my backyard in my brand new house. I can still have an issue
Yeah,
with critters.
easily.
And storing the bird seed, of course, in the garage or the shed or the barn or in the backyard is a welcome wagon for a lot of rodents, I would assume.
It is if it's done poorly. I mean, if you store it in metal, tight metal containers, you shouldn't have a problem. But a lot of people, yes, will just throw bags of bird seed in a garage. Their garage door has bad seals, or chipmunks have chewed the corners of the seals, and now it's just entry for mice and chipmunks all the time, knowing there's a food source in there.
So let's talk about the chipmunks. I seem to have the chipmunk, like, they follow me around. What are some things that, I have a chipmunk infestation, and it seems like every home I live in.
You're feeding birds, though, aren't you?
Well, I was,
Okay.
but I'm not anymore.
All right, good.
And they ate right through the plastic containers
Right.
that I kept my bird seed in. The big dumpsters you think the rodents can't eat through, they eat right through plastic containers. It has to be metal. I've learned that.
They will chew through aluminum, so it has to
Yes.
be metal.
Cut their feet or mouth.
So with the chipmunks trapping, and it's just a slow elimination of the population, or population control, because you're never going to rid yourself of chipmunks. So if you can just cut down on the population so it's not out of control, that's going to help you.
Well, I think the other one you brought up at the beginning of our talk today was the bats. And is it beneficial, like for a bat house outside, or is that just attract the bats like the birdseed would attract the birds?
Bat houses, for the most part, attract wasps.
Oh.
Most bat houses have wasps living in them. It's very hard to get bats to go to a bat house unless you were to kick bats out of a house, and the people wanted the bats still really close around, and you mounted the bat house right where you kicked them out. So when they come back, they can't get in, but they climb up into the bat house. But now you have all these bats living on the side of your house, leaving dirty bat droppings all over the place.
So those of us who do like the critters around, the birds and the bats and all those bees and wasps to pollinate our flowers and things, what are some things that we can do to enjoy those things that we enjoy without, compromising critters
Just
in our homes?
try not to, feeding birds, other people will feed the wildlife.
Yeah, leave it to somebody else.
Feed wildlife. Take care of your home. If you have any rotted wood, if you have a deck that's looks like animals are living under it, you can seal off the deck, kick the animals out. Have your home sealed up tightly so it's not an open invitation for things to come and move into
that's
the
something
house.
you do as well,
We do
or
that
you-
all the time. Yeah. We have
That's sweet.
full-time, we do more home repair and prevention than anything else.
So talking about in the attics, so I get that inspection report back, and my buyers are concerned that there have been called out excrement, and we think maybe mice. I get a lot of pushback from sellers saying it's in the attic, it's no big deal.
When it comes to limited amounts of mice, that's so common. I'll never freak out and push a homeowner, hey, you must clean this out, just because it is so common. But when we start talking about any kind of raccoon feces, bat dropping, bat guano, raccoon feces is extreme. It can be very harmful. Plus, it will attract other raccoons. So if that's ever in an attic, that needs to be cleaned out. It needs application of sanitizer.
And insulation
And
needs to be taken
insulation
away.
needs to be, it depends on the severity of it. But a lot of times, yes, you need to remove the insulation out of there and put new back in. But a lot of times that can be done like in a spot cleaning where the whole attic doesn't have to be done. But when it comes to bats are so sporadic. And if there's bat droppings all over insulation, yeah, you would want to look into that. So
Because it's in the attic, which is why they say that, but we know that somehow that attic is going to have some kind of a circulation into our house. So the excrement is not healthy at all.
air's constantly moving. There's gaps all over. Just think about all of your light fixtures, your ceiling fans. You have the cold air returns pulling air. Then you have your ductwork pushing air back into the house. mice and squirrel and raccoons are chewers. So if they have
Oh, yeah.
chewed or,
Chipmunks.
if
The wires that are up there?
Well, if they've chewed through any of the ductwork, because most homes nowadays are the 3-ply flexible ductwork. And if they chew little holes in that, well, are they leaving droppings in the ductwork? Is that filtering into your house? So, I mean, it depends on the severity of the problem.
And that's what you're for, right? Go in
we
and say,
do-
this is 1, 2, or
well,
3. What's the
I-
worst you've ever seen? Shall we ask
Do we
that? or-
wanna hear
yeah,
this?
no, do we not want to hear this?
I'm going to say one, well, okay, so there was, we didn't take this job on. He didn't accept us, but when a kitchen ceiling collapsed in because of the weight of the bat guano, the bat droppings.
Ooh, goodness.
When that collapsed into the house, that was bad. But
And this, let's just pretend that we know or could know. How long did that take to happen?
that was years. That was years. Years and years of giant bat colony living
Wow.
in a somewhat
Because we never go in our
farmhouse.
attics.
No,
We don't, you
no.
know? Why would
But
we?
I mean, before I even walked in the door, I could smell like the ammonia smell.
Like a
from
cat?
Similar to a cat, yes. Because
So if they don't have cats and we smell that smell?
it could be. I mean,
I smell
any
gas
s-
when I walk into a house, so I'm always like smelling that, the gas odor or anything like that. I'm like, and mold, I can smell it. So now if I'm like, there's a cat in the house and they say there's no cat,
there could be, yes. There is quite an ammonia smell
interesting.
with a large quantity. Now, raccoons can be really like a musty, dirty smell. There's little things like mice that are shrews that live in walls, and they smell really musty, like an old pile of leaves. It's just, there's a lot of different things. But let's go back to the worst one. Was an attic here in Carmel. This was a few years ago. It took us almost a full week to clean out the raccoon feces from the attic. It probably went on for 5-6 years.
I can't
Homeowner,
believe we wouldn't hear that.
well, they did.
They're nosy.
The homeowner was trying to tackle the problem on their own and eventually said enough's enough and called a professional. And I would say about 2/3 of the ceiling, we had to cut the drywall out because the ceiling was so stained and saturated. We had to have drywall crews come in behind us. That one was pretty bad. Typically, that's not what you see, but we do run into those.
So I'm hearing that you do the cleanup and the investigation
Yep.
and the identification of what's going on. So what about the critter control? Do you catch and release? Do you
Well,
help with the critters?
There's different things. This industry is regulated by the Department of Natural Resources. So they have their rules and regulations, what we can do and what we can't do with animals when we do catch them. So whatever the law is, we have to follow those laws. What we try to do a lot is we try to evict the animals. So we like to go around and let a homeowner know how to seal up the house, what it would take to seal up this house tight enough, and then kick out or evict whatever animals are leaving or that are living in there at that time.
And go to the neighbor's house.
Yeah, but I mean, people love the wildlife, so you want it around. But
I'm glad to hear this. But I'm glad to hear this.
But
Yeah.
that is an option. But I will tell you that option's a lot more expensive than catching a raccoon or 2 or 3 that are living at a house. So, and when you catch a raccoon, you cannot take it outside of or when you catch any wildlife, you cannot take any wildlife outside of the county where you catch it, and it's against the law to release in any parks. So it has to be someone's private property you're releasing on. So we don't get a lot of calls of people saying, "Hey, can you turn 100 raccoons loose at our house?" And most of the time it's, "Hey, I have a raccoon living in my attic. Can you come take care of it?" So there's several different things that can be done, and it's not just animals in houses. We do lots of people spend a lot of money on landscaping, so we deal with lots of things like moles.
Well, that was a
moles
question,
are so
yes.
destructive.
Yes, they
especially
are.
when you spend a lot on your lawn, your flower beds. Voles are a big thing, shrews, there's chipmunks, back to the chipmunk thing. But there's, when you say critter control, I mean, we even go down to ants and spiders and mosquitoes and all
spiders.
that
Yeah,
stuff.
yes,
But
spiders. It's
Yeah.
not Shelley's favorite. Spiders,
No.
definitely
spiders,
not.
No.
Carla's either.
No, but like the mole issue, I've seen
Mm-hmm.
it in lawns that I've
Yes.
been privy to mow, and that's a huge problem.
Yes.
Moles and
Yep.
shrews, and they're not easy to catch. And I know, you can go to Lowe's and buy the little things to catch them, and that's not always effective. So that is something you take care of as well?
We do. This is the time of year. The mole calls are coming in left and right. Yeah.
Well, like you said, so it's not your choice. It's the DNR that's telling you what you can and can't
Correct,
do.
correct.
So,
And there's different things that can be done. I mean, if it was up to us, we would just take everything out and let it go. But actually, that's doing more harm to them and the environment. So what the DNR directs us to do is what we do.
right. Because isn't it true, though, that all of these animals that you're letting go will just come back to where they were anyway? Right? Like raccoons, they just come
some-
right back.
Some will, yes. But if you take them far enough away, which once again, you can't take them outside of the county, so we couldn't take them outside of Hamilton County. But say we took them to the farthest edge of Hamilton County, well, they just went through a traumatic experience in a trap, and now you're going to dump them. They're not going to get all excited and, hey, here's a tree to live in. They're going to look for the closest neighborhood, closest house, and then they're going to break in there, and then animals become trap smart. And they're like, no, I had a horrible experience with that. I'm not doing that again. So now you've taken a problem that you could have solved and dumped it somewhere and created a problem for a new homeowner who may not be able to solve the issue. So there's a
Interesting.
lot of things that go on. And
So I had a question. A lot of homes and subdivisions and places we build now have the retention ponds, and I know that water attracts critters. So when I'm looking to buy, sell, live in a home, and there's a retention pond involved, what are some of the things that I need to be aware of when it comes to critters? Because I know that water attracts critters.
Right.
Yes?
Like, so if that's in your backyard,
Yes.
like we like that view's beautiful, but what does that bring?
I mean, it will bring a little bit of everything. It's going to bring the geese.
Oh, yes, the geese.
Nobody likes the geese anymore. It will definitely bring the geese. It'll bring, depends on the neighborhood. Muskrats are a huge thing when you live on a pond. And a lot of times if you're living on a pond, you don't have the biggest backyard. Well, the muskrats will burrow up into the banks, and then your bank will start to collapse and fall in, and your backyard starts shrinking. And that's a HOA thing usually. But I mean, it attracts raccoons, it attracts everything because it's a drinking source or a feeding source for things.
So in preparation, is there things that I can do so that those issues aren't going to affect my property, as in my building, my home? I mean, sealing up again? Are we going back to that?
Sealing your house is the number one thing you can do. Eliminating the open invitation areas on your house, because most houses have natural construction gaps. The builders didn't do anything wrong. You're not going to get water in. It's structurally sound, but there's just big enough openings where animals and rodents can get in. So if those are sealed up, you're doing one of the best things you can do. Then there's exterior things also. I mean, a fence around your yard. That's going to help with some things getting in your backyard. Your foxes and coyotes, depending on the fence, which we have a lot. I'm sure you being here in downtown here.
Oh, we have a fox that runs around right out here.
There's multiple.
There's
that
multiple,
run around
yes. In my
out
neighborhood
there.
too.
I like seeing them.
Oh, the
I'm back
foxes
to,
are
yeah.
foxes are great. There's a last couple of years. There's been a bad case of mange in a lot of these foxes.
I know. Well, they
But
don't have any place to live. We have so much building going on. They're getting kicked out of their habitats.
They
That's
are-
a whole nother story.
They are, and the biggest thing is the coyote conversations going on, and people feel bad for the coyotes, but we have provided them situations to thrive in. I mean, we're bringing all this with back to the lush landscaping around people's house and feeding the birds, bringing in mice, chipmunks. The landscaping makes it nice for the rabbits. So we're providing all of this food source for the coyotes, and people are freaking out because they're seeing coyotes in their neighborhood, and they feel bad for them when what is really happening is the coyotes have an abundance of food, so they're thriving right now.
Yeah, I know you said earlier before we started, you said that there would be situations where you would say, do not buy this house. What would cause that? What would make you put hair on the back of your neck and say,
The bats in the ceiling.
So I won't ever tell someone not to buy this house, but I will warn them, don't buy this house in the condition it currently is in. If you can get the seller to correct that for you or give you an allowance, get a couple, we try to be fair and honest when it comes to our estimates, but feel free, get 2-3 estimates, and if you can get an allowance from the seller to where they will cover or take that amount off the asking price, because some of these houses, when it comes to bats and raccoons, I mean, you could be looking at a lot of money, and with bats, you basically have to seal up every single little opening on the house and evict the bats.
because can't they get into like really
About
little
the size
bitty-
of an almond.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, goodness.
They squeeze.
and the bigger the house, the more opportunities for entry. So it can cost a lot of money to seal up and evict bats, but that's just the first step. The next step, once you know the bats are out, now you want to clean out the attic space because you don't want all those bat droppings in there if you're moving into a new house. So the process of sucking out all the insulation, doing the sanitizing, the new insulation, all of that can get extremely pricey. And
So that all comes from the inspector saying, I think there's some animal activity in the crawl space or the attic. Get a
Correct.
specialist to look at it, and you ignore that. You may be opening yourself to tens of thousands of dollars.
and we've seen it multiple times.
So
Multiple
listen,
times.
listen to that advice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we try to do, is help them through the entire building process, is just to know and to talk to people like you, is to know what we've seen and what you've seen. I mean, I'm not walking in your shoes every day, but hearing what you're saying, we need to transport that over to our buyers and our sellers to let them know this is not something to just like a whatever.
So on the other side of the coin then, when is it, because we're never going to 100% mitigate animals being
Right.
in our space.
Right.
So when is it okay on the other side of the coin to like say, okay, we're good. We don't need to take further action because these are just things, because we'll never 100% mitigate critters in our space.
Are you
Or will we?
Are you asking just like around your house, or are you saying in your house?
Either or, probably in, from
I
a buyer
don't
and seller's
think-
perspective.
I don't think it's acceptable to have anything inside.
Okay.
But I wouldn't. So, let me say, when it comes to mice, are you going to see evidence in a house you are potentially going to purchase? There's a very good chance of that. I wouldn't freak out and let it stop the sale because it's so common. But if the seller has never done anything to remediate the problem or take care of the mouse issue, I'm not saying remediate as in like an attic restoration, I'm saying to solve the current mouse problem. If they've never done anything to take care of that, well, yes, I would ask, hey, let's get rid of the current mouse population before I purchase this house. But I wouldn't let some evidence of mice in an attic stop you from purchasing
Okay.
a home. Anything active, squirrels, raccoons, definitely, I would say make sure that's taken care of prior to you moving in, because that's just not something you want to deal with.
The pitter patter of little feet.
If you don't clean up from raccoons, other raccoons are attracted to the house. So if it's had a really bad raccoon problem, the odds of raccoons picking on this house in the future is much greater. Bats also come back to where they used to live over and over and over. So what we will see is we will do a seal up for bats, and we will evict the bats, and then someone will have a hailstorm or get a new roof, not tell us, then the roofers rip off everything that we did, and within a year their bat problem is back. So the bats constantly come back to that area looking, hey, I used to live here. Can I get back
Can I get
in?
back yet?
And raccoons
Did they-
just, yeah.
Did the parents go away?
And the raccoons just smell if it wasn't cleaned up. They can smell others have been there, and then they want to move in also.
So that kind of thought I came to my head is then you do all this work. But you can't have somebody, you can't like have a guarantee and go, oh, a year and a half now, I'm calling you, hey, you, it's still here, or it came back. Like you can't do that, right?
Well, yes and no. Some people want give me a guarantee I'm never going to have a problem again. That's unrealistic. Can we guarantee that we get rid of your current issue? Get them, remove them, kick them out, whatever, seal it up, and seal it up well enough, and then guarantee nothing. We provide a 1-year warranty against things, and we will warranty anything we do on your house. If anything gets through, we'll take care of it at no charge to you. It's on us. But to say, 2 years later, in a squirrel choosing a completely different spot, we can't do that.
I couldn't imagine.
No.
You never know where
A
they're
1-year warranty is very good, though. I think that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Because, animals are smart. They're smart.
They're very smart, and they have sharp teeth and claws, and it's very easy for them to get into a house.
So what have we missed to talk about that you think would be really good to talk about? Or funniest story you have, anything? Put you on the spot?
Yeah, you're putting me on the spot
Okay.
there. I don't know what we have missed.
Okay. Well, I think we've got a lot of good information, stuff I honestly never would have thought about, but I do go to the second, source of if that's there. But the conversation with the seller now for me probably will be more the listing agent is, we do find this as a problem, and when you do come in and tell us what it is, I think the biggest number one thing will be is the cost to remediate. It's not whether or not the seller thinks it's good or bad, but if I'm looking at $3,000, it's
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
So I don't imagine you've got a $300 answer to anything.
My inspection.
Yeah, there you go.
and I will give you a blueprint to solve their problem for that. I would definitely, I would say anytime that something is noticed for a potential buyer, I would always call a couple professionals to come out and take a look at that. And you will notice in this industry, pricing is all over the board. And you will also notice there's, unfortunately, if there are a couple droppings in an attic, people are told you need an entire attic remediation. Well, we deal with a lot of buyers and we deal with a lot of sellers. A seller doesn't want to hear, okay, you need to remediate this attic, complete restoration, and that's going to be $8,000. When, in all honesty, you look at it and just an eighth of the attic really needs to be addressed. So definitely get a couple of estimates because they can be all over the board, but I highly recommend at least having, one professional, most of the time a couple wildlife control operators, professionals come out and take a look at it.
Well, I think that's always the best thing to do is get the person that knows what they're talking about.
Exactly, the person that deals with it every day.
Yeah,
Not us.
We
yeah.
don't. Yeah, no.
Every day
Well, in
for-
my house I might sometimes. My own house. But so how can they get a hold of you to get this help?
We only service Hamilton County. We are Critter Control of Hamilton County. The office number is 317-591-9744. Or you can reach us at hamilton@crittercontrol.net. Like most people, Google. Google, you'll see. You
It's an
can-
easy name to
yeah,
remember, I
critically-
think, yeah.
Just make sure it says of Hamilton County. But we have plenty of reviews there that you can
Oh,
read from.
That's
you know,
why we had
the
you on.
neighbors.
I know you're
So,
good. You've got a great reputation, and I think
thank you.
you're the
Thank
person
you.
to call if anybody's having these issues in Hamilton County, of course. And then
Appreciate that.
find out what you're dealing with. It's like you said, you have a fee to come out and look
Mm-hmm.
at it, but not having that inspection done by you could cost you thousands more
It
when
could.
you look into it later. But we thank you so much for having you on, and please reach out to them if you have any questions, anything. Maybe you can just answer some certain questions that people have concerns with. We appreciate you being on. But I'm Shelly Walters with F.C. Tucker and the Shelly Walters Realty Group. You can reach me at 317-201-2601. Joy, can you give them your contact information?
Oh, yes, and I'm Joy Perry with the Shelly Walters Group, and I'm at 812-343-1710 or at Joy Perry, talktotucker.com.
There you go. So thanks so much for joining us. Please like us, and also give us any of your questions. We'd be glad to answer some of those and give some content for us in the future. Have a great day. Bye.